What is up, Isaac? How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. This is the Game Chat. This is a bi-weekly chat with Isaac of Gaming with Sidekicks and myself, Ryan, with One Board Family. And this week we actually have a guest host with us, which is pretty exciting. So,
First guest.
Yeah. So, Isaac, do you want to introduce our guest?
I would like to. This is is he going to appear all of a sudden? This is Ross. Thompson. Oh, there you go. This is Ross Thompson joining us from the Op. Ross, thanks for coming and joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. It's so good to be on the show. It's good to see you guys. It's been a full year. It's crazy how that all is, right?
So, yeah.
Absolutely crazy.
Am I brother the first guest?
You're the first. Yes, sir.
Oh, well, that's fantastic. Cool. Tradition set now, right? Let's do it.
There we go. It'll be the best. So, we wanted to have a guest on because this is one of Isaac and myself. We talk about games every other week, and we wanted to get somebody in the industry on here and talk about maybe a specific topic. So, knowing you and the line of work you're in, we picked the topic of license and IP based games. So, we're going to be talking all about those tonight in different fashions throughout the next 30 minutes. So
cool.
For sure.
I'm excited.
Yeah. So, we growing up in the 80s, we all three of us grew up. I'm assuming
I was born in 88, so
88. Okay. So you still had those late 80s and 90s games that were terrible, but they carried some kind of TV show. So
I've got some ringers for tonight. It's going to be good.
Oh, nice. That's good. We're excited about that. So our first topic tonight is what IP-based games do you remember from your childhood?
Oh man, I'll go first.
Okay,
So I grew up playing board games. My parents were big geeks. Like we grew up watching Star Trek and Star Wars and so on, and Legos were big in our family. Nice. And we had board game night, and we still play in the holidays, play Risk and Monopoly, like with the whole family, and do all that. But at the same time, we played like Aggravation and Star Wars Monopoly, like the classic anniversary edition and stuff like that. But there's two games that really rung out when you mentioned we were going to be doing thematic and IP-based games. And so we played the Batman Forever game. So like Batman Forever, like with the Riddler and Tommy Lee Jones's Two-Face and the whole thing. Yeah. So there was you had to save people from being corrupted by the Riddler, and they would turn from regular people to green, and it was a high top circus thing where you had to launch a little bat ball from a bat catapult through the hoop that was hung between the two towers.
That sounds amazing.
Awesome.
Oh, it was incredible, right? And you had to go. It's funny because I was debating going over to their house to go grab it so I could like show the catapult. And we played that all the time, and it was really kind of neat because it was in that same like realm of Mousetrap where you had to build the board, and so there were the two towers and the folding cardboard, which like you look at that now and you're like, man, that table presence at a con would have been awesome because you're like, here's this huge thing, and while it's light. Because you're still doing like a classic life where it's like you move down the tile, roll a dice, and movement. But at the same time, like it's cool. It's got a fun thing. It was a big like Fantasy Flight graveyard box style, right? Like so, it's just one of those good ones there. I got more, but I guess we're gonna go around, right? So it'll be.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I've never seen that one. I have to look it up now.
Oh, it's if you can get it, it's still pretty cool.
Really, that's awesome.
I love the Riddler. I love that Jim Carrey Riddler.
Yeah.
The pieces, the people were all like, You're good.
So Isaac, you actually have a game that I remember seeing at a friend's house.
I do.
Yeah, and you actually have a copy,
right?
Yeah,
this is my OG copy of it from back when I was in grade school. Probably one of the first games that I got because I was obsessed with the cartoon series after it come out, which is the Uncanny X-Men Alert Adventure game.
Nice.
It's huge. This is a big box. And I just remember like talking my grandma into buying it for me, mainly because I had to have, it's a little crinkly loud. all the X-Men minis.
What?
Oh, whoa!
That is really cool.
Zoom in on this.
I'm gonna make you big there.
Even Professor X down there.
Wow.
So I was obsessed with these, and I kept these in really good shape. Made sure to take care of the set, and it's got all the different characters, but it was like the straight up cartoon series.
That is in fantastic shape. Like
I
a lot of
care of this guy.
Yeah, I've got Hero Quest down here, and that is in the worst shape possible.
Oh, my Hero Quest is taped together, right?
Yes. So many tape seams. That's really nice.
That's
so
good.
I remember a Who Framed Roger Rabbit game from my childhood. I don't think I had it, but I remember when I was looking up and looking at some of that stuff, I remember seeing the cardboard standees, and it immediately rushed back to me, and I was like, I remember that. I was a big Who Framed Roger Rabbit fan when the fact that they merged real things and cartoons that cool to me. That was one of those little cardboard standees, and I don't even know what the gameplay. It's probably a roll and move game,
right?
But yeah, I just
so
remember it.
Good.
Yeah. So we've got Justin Gibbons. He had that game, and
I'm gonna go and grab my other one really quick here. Hold on.
Okay. My mom sold it in a garage sale. Oh, that's so sad. So
sorry, Justin. That stinks.
Yeah. And if you want to interact, be sure to comment whether you're on Facebook in either one of our channels or on YouTube. Just be sure to comment, and we'll try to throw you in there. So,
for sure.
Jurassic Park. What?
This is one of the coolest ones.
Okay.
Right. Oh, you gotta get that like love with the tape.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So this one is it's literally a classic roll and move. And we played this all the time.
Yeah.
Growing up. And I'm so glad I was able to grab it. But the map is massive. And you've got is it
a paper map or is it
so let me get it. Here's the whole board here, right? So it's got a USAopoly photo of me in a red. That's funny.
There we go.
A glitter beard right there. Good times.
Nice.
That's funny. I'm gonna move those Munchkin coasters too.
This has obviously traveled with you.
It's a little bit, right? But yeah, so it's got this huge board in here, and I could pull it out, but it's like 3 of this size. So it's the whole island. Yeah. And along with that, it's got these. You can build the visitor center.
Mm-hmm.
So it has the little pop-up visitor center.
That's awesome.
So you can get going, right? And you put that on.
Really
so you've got to get to the visitor center. And so as you're running, it's not a roll and move. What you do is you have these cards, and all the cards have different move. Oh, you've got different move on it. So like move 2 or 3, or move 1, or escape 1, or the best card you can get in that is cancel a player's move. Right? So they don't get to go anywhere.
But
the whole time they're running, and you've got your nice ID cards. Because you got to make sure you know who's who.
Nice.
Right? As you're going around on those different things.
Nice.
But you're running from these fantastic dinosaurs. So you've got your Velociraptor.
What?
Yeah,
and you've got your.
That thing had some sweet minis.
Right?
Yeah.
The T-Rex.
They're all exactly the same size. I love that.
Oh yeah. Well, you've got their own little
okay.
Bits, right?
It's a little smaller. Okay.
Yeah, and then you've got this
not to scale.
And they're all standees too, right? So you've got these like Alan Grant and everybody's all the different little colored pieces there.
Nice.
Yeah, so we played this all the time growing up. It was super fun.
That's awesome.
And
I love that you kept it. I love that you kept that one around. Why that one over something else that you would have sold or gotten rid of?
So this game, when I because I move around a lot, and I was like, "Hey, Mom and Dad, I'm working in board games. I got to grab this." This one because it's so ridiculous. The box is massive.
Yeah.
I keep it on top of my Kingdom Death box, right, to kind of give it like that's like it's that level of thing. But also it's light enough where it's like we haven't played it at a game night, but we could. Like it's definitely one of those where it's like this has got enough where it's a hex-based board of the island We could move around. It's got good table presence.
Yeah.
It'd be fun. So you never know.
Well, I do love the fact that they were already doing the card system with the movement, similar to what Restoration Games did with Stop Thief. One of my favorite games growing up was Stop Thief, and they went from a roll and move formula to a card based movement formula. It was so good,
right? So you got plenty to work on, and it's got just the little bit of theme with the ID cards is really funny, right? So
that's cool.
And I'm laughing that I have this field guide dinosaur book, probably from when the second movie came out, just in here. Like, good on me, young me. So
that's really funny.
There you go. Yeah, good times.
Saving the good stuff.
So Isaac, what else you got from your childhood?
So I got one other that is Star Wars obsessed. Right, I love Star Wars stuff. I grew up with my Star Wars, and this one. It's not my favorite character in the Star Wars series. I'll be very frank. I'm not a big fan of Ewoks. However,
what is that?
That's crazy.
Wicket the Ewok game. It was a make friends in a food gathering adventure game.
Mm-hmm.
So that sounds fantastic.
You had the tiny little Ewok standees, and you went around the Ewok village and you picked up food and gathered it. It was pretty straightforward Parker Brothers game.
That's a great looking board.
Oh yeah, no, and again, I tried to take good care of this stuff, especially the Star Wars stuff. I still have a lot of my figures, but I mean, this was in 1983. It was when Return of the Jedi came out. It's just a fun little.
I'm going to eBay look. What's that game called?
Wicket the Ewok. Yeah.
Now your hatred for Ewoks has been cataloged online in multiple places.
I'm not a big fan of the Ewoks for a couple things. One, I mean, the original Ewoks were supposed to be Chewbacca's, right? But financially, they couldn't make a bunch of giants, so they made them smaller so they could have more.
There we go.
The Ewoks are that marketing part of the movie to me that just look like they're cute to be cute. That being said,
got 2 stars on Board Game Geek. Sorry, buddy.
That being said, this was a part of my youth, right? And this was games that I just enjoyed playing, right? Cracking open, and everybody played it, right? I mean, we've talked, Ryan, quite a bit about playing with our family, playing with parents. Like everyone plays a roll and move game.
Yeah,
no one has a problem with it, right? It was more about sitting around the table with my grandparents, my parents, and my sister, and just being silly, right? And that's what I loved about being able to play this game.
What's up, Jeremy? Jeremy in the comments saying what's up.
Hey.
So a game that I remember from my childhood, pound puppies were really big when I was a little kid. So it was either you had a pound puppy or you had Cabbage Patch dolls.
Yep.
And so I had pound puppies. And so I was a big fan of pound puppies. For some reason, those little dogs snuggled their way into my heart deep down.
Aww.
And so I had the Pound Puppies board game, and I remember the front cover of it because it's my favorite Pound Puppy. It was the brown one with the spotted eye. I think he was on the front cover. I just remember that from my childhood so much. Those were definitely games that went away in the garage sale real fast. When I hit those double-digit numbers, they definitely made it into the yard sale box.
That's still fun though.
Yeah, but I wanted to bring up this one before we end our childhood thoughts. There's a game that I found while I was searching. The Married with Children Act Like, Think Like, Be Like a Bundy from 1990.
Never played it.
Married with Children board game. Found it on Board Game Geek. It gets a 6.3.
Hey, it's pretty good.
That's surprising. Or it's only 10 people.
Sure.
So
I'll produce
10 people.
Show, right?
Yeah. So yeah. Justin Gibbons says, "Oh man, Pound Puppies memories." Yes, absolutely.
Good times.
So what about we're all nostalgic about the games that we grew up with and those little flat boxes that were all the same size, except for Jurassic Park, obviously, because it was 10 times bigger. But what about the worst examples of IP-based games that we've played? What are some that you guys have been that was a real bummer?
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say one of my first Kickstarters was based off of a video game. My favorite all-time arcade video game is Burger Time.
Yeah.
Like, I love Burger Time. I don't know what it was about that, the dancing pickles, the hot dog. Like, there's something about that game. Like, I always loved it. And there was a Kickstarter campaign for it years ago for like a card game. I was excited. I was all in. I got the art piece. I got the little commemorative coin. I got the play mat. And the game was, it was not even Uno. It was like trying to be Uno, and it was just really bad. And I tried to push through, like, can we try this? Can we play it? Can I do something different with it? And it's up on my shelf somewhere. I actually couldn't find it because I think it might be down the basement. But I love the IP, and I was just disappointed that like I wanted a really good Burger Time game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What about you, Ross?
So it's interesting, right? So having worked in licensed games, I don't just want to be like, oh, these ones suck. But there's interesting parts for licensed games that I think is a neat point. Is I think from 1983, Wicket the board game to now, licensed games have totally changed where it's not as dirty as a word as it used to be.
For sure.
Right. And because they think, oh, it's a Burger Time game. But what part of that are you trying to translate onto the board? Right.
Yeah.
What memory do you want to get out of that? And so one that I was thinking of in a way to kind of morph this in a way that I would feel comfortable answering was, I think, the Oregon Trail board game.
That was on my list.
Yeah. So because when it came out, it looked great. It was that cool, like digi. We all played on the little MacBook, in school game. But it's like, what were you trying to get out of an Oregon Trail game? And so it was pretty light. It didn't have a whole bunch going on, and everyone died in the game. But a cool thing I do want to say about it was that was one of the first games that really got into Target that really blew up, and everyone's like, holy crap, board games are available at Target.
Absolutely.
Which was that was right when Cards Against Humanity was first getting in there too, and there was a couple other stuff, but Oregon Trail was that first one that it got on Board Game Geek. Everyone was saying it was super hot. It was sold out right away. And then you played it like 4 times and you're like, cool. And then again, right? So there we go. Look at that. I think my roommate described it right. There we go.
That's
awesome.
Thanks, Alex.
Funny. So Oregon Trail was actually that was on my list because it was one of those games that was so hot for a minute. And I remember I couldn't find a copy, and Aaron and I were talking about it. Well, we got to play this with the kids. The kids were a little younger at the time, and maybe they'll enjoy it like we used to enjoy the game. And so we went to go get it, and we couldn't find it. It was sold out, and a friend of ours had it. And he let us borrow it for a couple of weeks. And I remember I played it 3 times, and I was like, maybe I'm getting the rules wrong. So I was looking up guides on like, what did I do wrong? How did I screw up the rules of this game? No, it was just bad. I'll just sit here and watch you guys draw cards, and it's sad because that was an IP that I was actually excited for. It was something that I was excited because I was going to experience that with my kids in a different fashion,
right?
But the interesting part is something like Pioneer Days, which was put out by TMG. Pioneer Days feels like the Oregon Trail. You're actually moving from town to town and you're collecting goods and stuff like that. So nobody dies, but it felt like you were in the Old West. So we instead found another game that replaced that. So
perfect. Well, I think we've seen that people want games that are nostalgic, right? Or they want stuff that they're obsessed with in a board game. Like, was it Stardew Valley that just went nuts, right?
Absolutely.
People bought that. Like,
go ahead.
There was no knowledge on that game. Right. Nothing.
Perfect. They dropped one tweet. Look at this. You can buy it, right? And it blew up that day. It was like being on the publishing side. I love that. Even though we all know we make games, we distribute it. It goes in magazines. It goes in review copies. We go to shows. We go to this. Like in the wheel. This is how it works. Somebody's still like, screw all that. We're just going to make it, release it, and look at that. And it blows up. And it just shows how powerful the community and the fandom around a license or a theme or a company or a person can be, right? Like, look at Exploding Kittens and that same thing. Right? Like, we didn't know what it was until it hit. And then when it hit, everybody knew what it was right away. And for all your thoughts on that game, whether it's not super, it's a light, it's fun, but it does what it does what it means to do.
Yeah.
Right. You're playing a light little passing around the dynamite, but it formed a whole company that's now coming out with Neanderthals, with poetry and all kinds of cool things. So it's funny how that kind of that license theme, and Stardew Valley is a great one to bring up on that, because
it is.
People already have it in their hands now. There's no wait. They waited until they were ready to go, which is very it's unique. It doesn't happen often in our industry. So I applaud them.
It is unique. And, one of those, when you see things, especially when you talk about Kickstarters, when you kickstart a game versus having it ready to go and saying orders are coming in right now, you can buy it. Okay. I think that's interesting, because I think that, my son and I were watching Umbrella Academy, and we were enjoying the show. We were liking it. We were talking about the themes and the plot and everything, and about what was going on. It proves like people have gotten it through fulfillment, and I hear terrible things about it. And it's one of those games that I'm like, the artwork looks so good. It was like in everybody's wheelhouse at that moment when it was on Kickstarter, and nothing. Like I wouldn't, if I saw it for under $5, I might buy it for the artwork. But I've heard nothing but bad things about it.
Well, and that's it may not be for somebody, but it may be someone's game too, though.
That's true.
Right? Yep. Because I think with the board game community, for as wide as we are and diverse as we are across so much stuff, social media really has kind of made some lines and be like, hey, we don't like this game, or we like this game. So even though the people that love a certain style of game that happen to be the loudest in the community may not like it, the game may still have its own merits in its own way. So
that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And games, I've enjoyed games. I've taken a game that other people have been like, it's not that good, and I hold up the game, I'm like, I like it, I dig it, So that's totally right, Ross.
That's all that matters.
Yeah. If it's your favorite game, go for it. So
well, and it's funny too, because I see the thing up there on your shelf up there, right?
Yeah.
And speaking of thematic games, that like obviously it's an op game, so I'm gonna be like rah, but also like that game captured the movie so well.
It did,
and it was one of those like, well, how do we take the feeling of the movie and then translate it onto a tabletop platform?
So here's a story about the thing. I got that for Christmas the year that it came out.
Cool. The
license, maybe you can fill me in on what happened if possible. I don't know. It was not being reprinted. Okay. It was still in the shrink, and it sat there for a year in the shrink because I didn't have the people to play with me. I committed to, after I knew it wasn't getting a reprint, I committed to it, opened the stuff up, knowing that it was $180 on eBay, committed to it, opened it up, and we played it probably 5 times last year. And I love it. And people have told me they don't like that game. And I don't care. I like it a lot.
Oh, that game is fantastic.
It is. But I've heard people say, oh, well, it's broken because this side wins too much. And I'm like, I don't care. It follows the movie. It's really, really tense. And I opened it knowing that I could have gotten a lot of money for it. So,
and that's one of those things. Yeah. So it's interesting how licensing works. I can't go super deep into that, right? Yeah. But when you get a license contract, you have it for a certain amount of years, and then it goes from there, and then you can choose to extend or things happen or not. So who knows? Like, the thing is great. We love that game. It's super cool. Who knows what'll happen in the future? Yeah. Yeah. So anything can happen. So
there we go.
Bad pun. Sorry.
So let's talk about games that nailed the IP. One of the games that obviously, one of the games just last year, actually the op published it. It was Friday the 13th, Horror at Camp Crystal Lake.
Cool.
Okay. When I found out, it was actually because you and I were talking on a call where you were talking about some of the games. This wasn't a live stream or anything, but you were talking about some of the games that you guys are putting out. And I played the game. I didn't know that it was a reskin of Quartz. And Quartz is this probably loves. It's tense and it's frustrating. And I was like, Quartz and Jason Voorhees, and it made total sense, and so it's the tension that builds when you're drawing out of that bag and you're like, what am I going to pull? And it was a great fit. It nailed that theme and it brought tension. Now, could you apply for 13th to a ton of other mechanics? Of course, but I feel like it was actually a really, really cool fit that I wouldn't have put together. So,
well, and I have the reskinned Quartz in Snow White.
Yeah,
and the Seven Dwarfs. I love, like, and we're in Disney House, and man, that game, we had played the heck out of that one. But again, using a mechanic that works well and finding, like, it just gem mining works great.
Yeah.
And you got the Seven Dwarfs.
That's kind of the magic of what we get to do here at the op, right? So
yeah. Well, one of the reasons we asked when Ryan and I were kind of brainstorming ideas and who to talk to, one of the reasons we wanted you on, it wasn't to point out all the games we love, but we're like, man, most of the games that we love are coming from the op. And one of my favorite themed games, when we talk about things that nail the IP, I love escape room stuff. My wife does not. She's not interested. She doesn't love it.
Same here, man.
She'll humor me occasionally.
Yep.
But man, if she did not crazy get into this,
awesome.
Like more than I expect. Like, we played the first half, right? Because this thing's broken down to play it for an hour if you want, take a break, come back. We played the first half. I looked at her, she's like, let's go, let's finish this adventure. And I was ecstatic. And everybody was acting out the parts. My son was reading like Scooby-Doo.
There we go. Oh yeah.
It was such a fun mix of escape room and a little RPG and a little like all that. Like, we were finished and I was like, oh, man, I want to play part 2. Like, I'm looking at this going like, all right, does it say of one? Am I going to get another version of this? But I loved it. Like, I as far as nailing the IP, this one's like top of my list right now. I love this.
That one, awesome. That one was such a clear. So Aaron and I played that end of the summer, maybe. I'm trying to think of the time frame, but whenever it was, I just remember us sitting down and being like, the voices, the characters, the way that the characters were written, the different, even the mansion that you're exploring feels like Scooby-Doo. And so it's funny because we were playing it and Netflix had put, I think, one of the new Scooby-Doo episodes, like a couple seasons. And so I started throwing that on while I was working.
Oh, perfect.
I'm working from home and everybody's off at school or whatever. And I'm playing that during the day while I'm working just to hear Scooby-Doo in the background. So that one definitely nailed the IP really well.
That one's so we got to work with Sen Fu Lim and Jay Cormier on that one. And we did a panel. I ran a panel for the Op at Home for Comic-Con last year where we brought a bunch of designers to talk about our games. And Sen shared a really funny story about that. So Sen, in case you don't know, is a huge Scooby-Doo fan. Nice. Like super fan level Scooby-Doo, which was perfect. So when we first reached out to them about wanting to do Cody Chronicles and the escape room style and kind of more of an op thematic, and we were like, oh, Scooby-Doo, he was like, yes, I am in. So Sen did a lot of the major writing for it. And so when we submitted that game to Warner Brothers and it came back, the licensor was like, is this one of our stories? And they're like, oh no, it's from the designer. And they're like, oh, well, that easily could have been a Scooby-Doo full-on story. And it's just like, that's perfect, right? That's
the highest compliment.
It really is. They've done a wonderful job with that. And obviously we've done one with The Shining as well. But so you're looking on that. Are there more? We are going to be doing more Cody Chronicles for sure. Nice. We love it. It's super fun. I can't say we're going to do like a Scooby-Doo continuation, but we do like the ops library of licenses we have available to us is pretty vast. So we'll see what happens.
Very cool.
So Ross, what is a game that nailed the IP for you?
So the minute I saw that, I had an immediate one come to my head, and it's the Battlestar Galactica, the base game.
Okay.
So that was when we were first getting. I was really kind of first getting into playing board games. I was a big D&D, big Warhammer War Machine player, and we were doing more board games at the game store, kind of off after game night hours in the league and stuff like that. And it was right when that game first came out, and we played. For those that haven't played, it's very similar to The Thing, right? So who's the Cylon, and you're on the ship, and you're trying to make sure you can jump to get to the planet. But you got to get enough fuel, and then halfway through, someone else becomes a Cylon, so you're kind of worried about what's happening there. But the first time we played, we were trusting Patrick, one of the guys at the game store, and he was leading us right through. Everything was good. We had found out who one of the Cylons were, so we're like, oh, we're set. There's no way there's a second one here. And all he had to do was just hit the FTL button so we could jump. And instead, he reveals himself as a Cylon, blows up two parts of the ship, and then the Cylons win. And we're like, what is that? And he's like, I've been a Cylon since the beginning of the game. And we're just like, what? Oh, my God. So we played that game to death. The base game is super good. The expansions add to it. I felt it really captures a lot of what's the good parts of that stuff. And then for my board game group, in college, like we played that. I literally taped around the edges kind of thing. So awesome. And it was right when the show was out, and you can't beat that first season.
Nice.
So it really captures it pretty well, which is fun.
That's cool.
So,
awesome. Jason Evans actually brought up one of the games on my list, the Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle deck building game. That captures the Harry Potter series in a way that some friends of ours actually, off of a recommendation, they checked it out and they bought it, I think around Christmas one year. And they played it so many times. They were playing until 2 a.m. They were like, we're going to beat this one. We're going to beat this chapter. We're going to get through it. They invited one of the girls from their church to come in, and she jumped into it. And it just like, it was a nightly thing where they would stay up for hours and just play this game. And then every time you guys have an expansion, they're picking that up. It's really cool because I'm not a Harry Potter fan, but I enjoyed the game for its mechanics. And then all the people who are Harry Potter fans around me, they love it because of the theme. They're just like, this is so fitting, For myself, Horrified's such a good licensed cooperative game. One of the best co-ops that we own. So those are ones that nailed it for me.
Yeah, Hogwarts Battle, that's back really quick. That was one of the first games for the op where we really kind of jumped into the hobby. Market in general, because we were doing a lot of our co-branded games and our family party games, and there was the Gen Con where it came out, and the op was not prepared. We were not prepared. We had about 250 copies. Like, that's kind of what you do for Gen Con. You get enough where you can sell a few each day. And one of the guys from the Dice Tower got an early copy because he came by. We wanted to do some press stuff with him, and so they were tweeting out how they were playing the game on Twitter. Like the day before the hall opened, everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, we got to get it!" So we show up and we're ready to open the doors. And the minute the doors open up, our booth gets just mobbed, like Mad Max level mobbed. And we're like, "Oh my gosh, this is insane!" We are not. We had to do signups for demos and signups to get that and hand out tickets. We had to go to 50 each day, and that happened every year because then when the Monster Box expansion came out. And then the Charms and Potions one, which came out during virtual Gen Con last year, but still a similar thing happened. Our website crashed, right? So, but that game is so cool. Kevin Mandel did a fantastic job just like filling it full of Harry Potter stuff. I love that it says 11 plus on the box, right? Because that's when you get your owl to invite you to Hogwarts, and the opening of it too, where it has depending on.
I don't know anything about it.
Yeah. So, but it's I could go deep on it, but it's got a lot of good stuff into it, and there was I'm just going to gush for another quick story. So we were at Essen 2 years ago, and Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle had just been translated into German, so it had been in English for a long time. And this family came up, and I think they were Dutch, and they were talking to us about how. Harry Potter was a big part of their lives, and Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle was their way to teach their daughter to read English.
That's really cool.
And they were going on about how this is like the game that really inspired her to want to read and learn more, and we're just like, oh, this is the coolest thing, because like it brought them together to play board games, which board games are universal, so it's just cool that kind of happens. So
that's super cool.
My buddy Jason, who made that comment, was the one who did the review on our site here just a few weeks ago for the Charms and Potions expansion. He loves it. Him and his wife Becky play. Love the Harry Potter stuff. They loved how the expansion worked in, and it's such a neat mechanic. I mean, it's awesome in the Toy Story game too. I love that version of it too. It's just such a fun. It's like you talked about earlier. It's what do I want to get out of the movie experience on the table, right? And I could feel that in the Toy Story one just as much.
The Toy Story one was actually our very first gameplay of 2021.
Cool.
We woke up January 1st. We were spending some time with my parents in Florida and did that thing out on the 1st, and that was our first of 2021. So
how'd you guys do? Did you beat Sid?
So we beat the first level, and then we ended up, I think we left 2 days later to come back to where we live in Columbus, and so we have to get it back to the table and keep playing. My daughter, who is a huge Disney fanatic, liked it, so I was happy with that. So
that's great.
Yeah. So Hank on YouTube writes, Star Wars Queen's Gambit was literally like playing the episode 1 movie. So I remember the box art for it. I remember the look of it and all that stuff. I've never played it. So
we actually had a chance we were at Gamers Ranch, and Hank was in that group with us. I didn't play it, but I watched him set it up, and man, that thing was a table hog first off, but man, it looked beautiful on the table. Absolutely loved it.
Oh, nice. If episode 1 gave us anything, it was Queen's Gambit, the board game, right? So.
There we go. So Isaac, do you have another game that nailed the IP?
One more. Now, I mean, in general, I like anything superhero. So like Legendary, Dice Masters, like all that stuff's great, and I love it. But for nail the IP, like I have to go with Pan Am.
Oh, cool!
Pan Am is a great game that didn't need this IP, but when you look at the history and you look at the art and you look at how they took and integrated into the game, and they didn't just slap it on, right, and call it American Airlines of the board game. But one of the guys on our team, Stuart, his wife is pretty high up in the aviation world, and there's things she says, playing this, she's like, oh, that's absolutely correct. That's what you would have to do. That's how they would pay you off to take your airline.
Cool.
She said they nailed specifics that made her look at her profession and go, yeah, absolutely. Totally.
That's really cool.
Totally can see it. And just aesthetically, this game is top to bottom. Like it's just a nice retro Mad Men kind of game.
Absolutely. Yep.
Which kind of plays into that. Like that came out last year, right? And so it's amazing how even with the Scooby-Doo game and everything else, like licensed games are not just it's a slap to grab money and do whatever. They're quality games now that are right there with the rest of the board game industry. So
absolutely.
So we've been talking about games from the op quite a bit, but we actually have some questions for some games that you've been sharing and speaking about. First, before we transition, learned this early or from playing board games before he started grade school in earnest. Plus, it was a great bond. It was great bonding over the experience. Heartwarming stuff.
Perfect, Drew.
That's why we love talking about board games and family. So
yes,
it goes hand in hand.
Yes, sir.
So Ross, you have some pretty awesome games from the op that we love. And so Using Cues was a big hit in 2020. That was a game that we actually got a chance to review, and it hit right in the middle of COVID. Yep. How did promotion for this title change as you realized that you are putting out a party game based on colors when no one can hang out or be together? How did it change?
Yeah, so I mean, like everybody else in the industry, COVID totally shook how we were planning our whole year. I was at Gamma at the beginning of COVID when it was still like, it's fine, and then California shut down. Like, we got to get back, and so that was a weird flying in a zombie pandemic kind of world thing, right? But with Using Cues, it was interesting, right? Because it is a party game, and it's just one of those games where you got to be around everybody, but at the same time, we're like, well, we can still make this happen. And so one of the cool things about it, you've seen the board, and it's this huge color grid that's bright and like just energetic, and being able to play that over Zoom and then get and then that 2-camera Twitch feed, you're scrolling down Facebook, somebody just got it on live, and that fills your phone when you're scrolling down, and you're like, oh, this is really cool. So we essentially shifted gears, and we're like, okay, cool. Who's live streaming board games? Who's getting this going on? How can we get in that space? And which is kind of cool. If you think about it from a year today, last year to now, there were maybe 5 or 6 people in the board game space on Twitch. There were not. And now there's, 30 or 40 plus that are really good in building a whole community over there. So Hughes and Q's lucked out where it was new. It was easy. You could play with the audience, right? So you can, hey, audience, you're going to control this. What's your guess? What do you think? So we shifted towards that. I mean, we also lucked out where it was in Target, and at the beginning of COVID, Target was open and selling board games, and they couldn't keep board games on shelf. Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle also ended up right on the shelf during that March quarter too. Luckily, right? So there it was. We were getting a lot of Hogwarts Battle. We were getting a lot of Q's and Q's. Telestrations was getting a lot of play. So we shifted really towards playing with your family, having that game night at home feel, and then it happened to be available at a good time. So it's one of those things where it kind of did well. So it hit a lot of beats, which is nice. Scott Brady did a fantastic job with that game design.
Absolutely.
It's super cool. And I think one of the cool things about Hughes and Q's, obviously I work at the ops, so I'm going to like jazz it up, but that game is generational, right? Like you can teach it in an elevator pitch, and then you've got it. It's about how you perceive colors, right? So I could say corn, and we're all going to have, oh my gosh, you've got a memory that goes with that. You have an experience that goes with that. You've got a color that goes with that. And you're learning about people too, right? How do they describe what they want to say, So, and you kind of learn and it's one of the things that like now a year having played it, it's funny. I've played that game so much with different people. I've only played it once in person.
Really?
Okay? Because it was when Scott originally pitched it, Origins. I got to be in that, which funny story on that. I love con stories. So Scott came and pitched it to me and Pat at Origins, or Fletch at Origins. And as the whole board gets out and it fills at the table, a family walks by and they're like, oh, that looks great. Can we play? And he was literally right in the middle of pitching it. And we're like, yeah, come on in, do it. And you're like, well, you can't have a better game pitch than having somebody ask to play right away. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, the game's good. Awesome. Everybody gets it. If you haven't picked it up yet, go do it. Hughes and Q's is awesome. So I can't talk enough about it. It's wonderful.
Ryan, Bob said you guys did a live stream of it for One Board Family.
Yeah, that was actually one of our favorite live streams. We got together, Rick and Bob, and I think Adrian was on that live stream. And so Aaron and myself, and I think Kendall maybe. I mean, we actually, I think we were one of the first live streams because at the time, Scott messaged us on Twitter and said the colors that you guys zoomed when you had the overhead camera, the colors were spot on. I was like, what? I'm so excited about that. Like, it just made my day. So,
well, and Scott made a really good point on our review, and this game made my top 10 list of 2020, which I think is really hard for a party game to do. And for gamers, but I loved it. I loved it for everything Ross said, the multi-generational, the easy way to pitch this. But one of the things he pointed out, my main critique of this was I got some colorblind friends, I don't know if I'm going to play it. And he corrected and totally understood. It's exactly what he just said. That's about perception. So if guy that can't see red sees apples as this color, well, it should match up to the color that I would see it as, which I loved. And I haven't yet gotten to play with anybody who is colorblind, but I'm really interested to see how that perception lines up.
And my son is slightly colorblind. He's colorblind in certain areas, and so he struggles with certain tints of colors. And but he's still willing to play it. That's the important part. There have been games that he's been like, well, I can't tell enough, and so it's just frustrating. And he's willing to play that game. So,
well, and that's the thing that like the minute everybody sees the color board, the first comment is like, "Oh, it's not good for colorblind players," and you're like, that's a thing we think about a lot at the ops, making sure that our games are accessible and how do we do that.
yeah.
But from playing using cues, initially you're like, well, that's not going to work. But it's no, if you play it, it's how you understand the colors and how you perceive them, which then itself is really cool, because then you can kind of get to see how everybody else sees colors and what words describe the colors they're trying to, portray. So,
yeah.
Bob also said, Ryan, he remembered playing it. He's commenting on our feed. He remembers playing it at media night with Bruce. He said he remembers playing it because Bruce is not a quiet man when he plays games.
Nice. That's awesome.
Funny.
So the Rising series, Thanos Rising was the first Rising game, and I think at the time, I don't know if anybody else had knowledge that there were going to be additional licenses that took on that game mechanic. But Thanos Rising was a big hit. I just remember going to my first con after Thanos Rising came out and seeing the Thanos statue and people playing cards and being like, dang, that looks good, and just wanting to know more about it. And so with Thanos Rising being such a hit, was it an easy thing for you all at the op to say, we can modify this and adjust this and apply it to different IPs?
So one of the most fun things we get to do with the op is go, what licenses do we want to bring into games, and how can we, combine those and mash those up with game mechanics that are out there that are already existing, or do we have new ones in house? And I think one of the cool things about the Rising series that you brought up, like, it's about that big bad, right? And so, and that first game it's just iconic in itself. It has the Thanos face right there. It was at the 10 years of MCU, so we're all hyped up on, everybody going for the head and making sure you can take him out and get all those characters there. But when you look at a lot of the cool stories from superheroes and epic things and so on, there is usually a very iconic villain. And so it's kind of fun where we get to look and see, okay, which characters and things do you want to bring with. So our next one was, Harry Potter. So you get that cool Voldemort. I always do the cool little, like, almost dab statue kind of pose, right? He has that going on. And then we have our Star Wars one too, which is only available in the EU, unfortunately. So Asmodee UK or Amazon UK is probably a good way to sneak that over. But then you've got, like, we just came out with the Batman Who Laughs Rising, and then SpongeBob SquarePants Plankton Rising, which are totally different sides of the coin on that. But it's just funny how that works, because, with the Rising series, it's a co-op dice engine building game. So it's a puzzle solving where you're all on the same team, but at the same time, no one's quarterbacking, because, like, okay, cool, I should go there, but also I want to get that person for my team. So you gotta figure that out. And I think there's a couple of things we've done really well with that game that you mentioned was how cool it looks. Like that model is always a fantastic sculpt. We make sure that we can do all the cool stuff. Darren, who's our head sculptor for Batman Who Laughs, he wanted to make sure we could get the chains that aren't just like, that's why they're droopy and they move, which is a really cool aspect of the Batman one. All the dice are engraved, so they're not just, like a sticker. Right, well, they're not stickered either, but it's that style, right? And so for all that, I love the Plankton one. It's so different than, like, Heavy Thanos or Voldemort or anything there, and no one's getting hurt in that one. Yeah, the damage they're taking is them getting frustrated that you're not completing their order, right? So
interesting. Okay,
right. Get on that one. Yeah, it's a little bit silly, but they're cool. We really like the Rising games, and it's good stuff.
Awesome,
nice.
So let's talk about one more IP, and this is a partnership group, and I think I see it over your left shoulder, and that's the Smash Up Marvel edition. Now, Smash Up Smash Up's known to be an over-the-top, take the big stuff, smash them together, right? And you got sharks and princesses and everything in between. How does the Marvel formula play into that with a game like Marvel Smash Up?
Yeah, so Alderac Entertainment, AEG, they're a fantastic company. And I think one of the cool things we get to do with the op is work with other game partners in the industry, right? So we have all of our Munchkins with Steve Jackson games. You guys brought up Quartz with Plan B, right? And so when we were able to work with AEG on this, Smash Up Marvel isn't just our first with AEG, it's the first licensed Smash Up. Right, so they've got all the different cool parody ones they've got, and Paul Peterson has done a fantastic job, and their playtest team is really knows the game. So it's cool when we were able to kind of get and work with Marvel. It was neat how it's like, okay, well, what factions are there in Marvel that we can bring? What can we make happen with this? And then we wanted to make sure that it was going to be a standalone by itself, right? So obviously, you can smash it up and do all those things there, but because it's Marvel and because it's our first one, it's going to have legs of its own and be able to really kind of go out there. So you've got the Avengers, and you've got the Sinister Six, and Hydra, and Shield, and the Ultimates, right, and all these different little groups that are happening, and it's just a cool way to kind of get that out there. It is standalone, but at the same time, there are some rules you might know for some of the cards there, but we've really enjoyed being able to kind of play around in their universe and then at the same time play with the Marvel universe. So that's kind of one of the joys of the op is we get to literally kind of play in everyone's sandbox and then make some of the best stuff together to share it out. So
that's awesome. I'm a big, I'm sporting them on my shirt.
Yeah.
I'm a big Venom fan. What were you like for that game, for the Marvel version of Smash Up? What were you most excited? Like, do you have a favorite character or team that's in that for you personally?
So for me, I love Thor, right? And so like I'm a big Thor guy. I'm a big I'm a big superhero fan in general, right? Like I wore a Green Lantern ring in high school, so like we don't got to go too deep on superhero stuff there. But bring in the Avengers was super cool. And it's funny because with Marvel games, like you could throw a rock into a game store and you're going to hit a Marvel game. You know, like you've got Marvel United up on the shelf behind you right there. I've got AMG's Crisis Protocol, like literally off screen, right? So there's so many Marvel games that are out there, and I think what's really cool about Smash Up is that it isn't just going to get washed away in the tide of Marvel games, you know. And so we really wanted to make sure that all the different characters we could bring in and Mjolnir and everything there, like it has its place, and you're not just playing a card game that's Marvel. Like it is Smash Up, it is these things, and the unique stuff with that is you get to kind of take what is classic Smash Up and bring them all together and do that stuff. So it's nice that we can have all these Marvel games out there, I think, because it just shows how powerful the property is and how big the license is and how much Marvel's kind of transcended a little bit to this thing. Like obviously we're all rolling off WandaVision right now, you know, and then gearing up for Falcon Winter Soldier, and then Loki, and then whatever movie is going to get us going next, and what fan theory there, and all of that. It's we could talk for an hour just about that whole show, right? So, but the fact that we can do that is great because then you can play the characters you have. You see like Monica Rambeau's in Smash Up Marvel, right? And you got all that cool stuff there. Awesome. So it's being able to get not even a deep dive because a lot of these characters are coming out and doing this stuff. So we had some people that were working on our team and with AEG that really wanted to make sure they could bring the right characters to this game so that it wasn't just going to be here's Hydra versus Shield and Marvels versus whatever. Like, let's make sure that we can get a nice wide cast and variety that Marvel has to offer, which is really cool, you know? So, cool. And as tabletop gamers, it's what a wonderful time to be a geek, you know, that it's not just geeky now, it's literally pop culture. Like there's a D&D movie coming out that's going to have Chris Pine, right, and the guy from Bridgerton that are going to be in it, and you're like, oh, here's Entertainment Weekly now in Forbes covering D&D,
covering all of it.
Right. Like, and so we are, and especially kind of back to that COVID thing too, right? Like at a time when, you know, everybody has to, you know, go be with their families and do these things. Board gaming is there, right? And we get to play that and do these things, and so it's, and then we all get to share with WandaVision, and so I could preach about it all the time, but I love that gaming gets to do this, and we can kind of celebrate in the arts and the entertainment. So it's good.
For sure.
It's really cool.
And the Marvel stuff, I mean, that's my, like, I love it. Marvel decorations up. Venom's always been one of my favorite characters. And I mean, our site, we talked about this before, but our site started, that's why we have the sidekicks on our logo as a Dice Master site. Like, we became obsessed with a game that let us play our favorite superheroes and roll the most awesome superhero custom dice we had ever seen.
Oh yeah.
And I have buckets of Dice Master stuff. Like, I don't play it as much as I used to, but like you said, it's just like one of the cooler things for that was like the obscure characters started to find their way into the game. Stuff that, like, one of the guys on our team, Randy's a big fan of the character Ricochet, who is not a big known character. He's in the Spider-Man Pantheos, and like, he was so geeked to, like, see, like, oh, this is my character, you know, and like to be able to experience that, like you said, have your little piece of geekdom on the table is just such a cool thing to be able to experience.
That's awesome.
And that's one of the things I think with licensed games and these thematic games that's really cool is, like, for your fandom, obviously you found it through a comic book or a movie or whatever, but at the same time, it doesn't mean it has to live there, you know, and there's so many different ways you kind of get to engage and explore in that. And so the art of finding how to translate that from what do you want, how do you want to experience that on the tabletop is really cool. And I think we've just only gotten better at it. And the more ways we get to make games and design games and then play them and share them, it's just going to get better and better. So
absolutely. Cool. We always end the show with what we're playing this week or this month or whenever, what we played today. Who knows? So I want to point out 2 games that our family's playing. First is a game from Hub Games called Combo Clash. This one's interesting. This is actually a promotional copy we're going to be doing a review for, but I was shocked at the amount of combos there. There's these little cardboard tile cards, and you're using this hand of cardboard tile, 5 cards in your hand, and you're playing them in a grid that's actually just a woven mat. And it is really fun because creating those combos, you feel like an evil genius when you extend your turn to be like this and then this and then this and then, oh, look at that, and now I got points. So it's a really cool one. And then one that we picked up this weekend because of all the hype that we kept hearing, Overballs.
Oh, cool.
Oh man, we just finished our 3rd play of it. It's really good.
That's
really
great.
Good. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love Boss Monster.
Yeah. So what have you guys been playing?
Isaac, go ahead.
So I've been lucky to have a group of, I've been vaccinated for a while as a healthcare worker, had some friends who are, so we've actually been able to start getting together in small groups, a couple of us to game, right? It's been such a breath of fresh air, right? And so I finally got to the table. I was going to put it up here on my table, but I have too many other games because this game is Kanban EV. Yeah. And I finally got to get Lacerda's beautiful Kanban game on the table. I mean, that thing, like, it was a brain burner. It wasn't quite the brain burn on Mars's, but we just loved it. And it's like, I love playing games with my family. We talked about that, but my family's not going to sit down for a 4-hour game of Kanban.
No.
And so I loved having a chance to play that with them. And this last weekend, I was out of town. My daughter had dance recital, had some time to write some reviews, play some games. I played my first ever solo game. I've never played a game where I've sat down and played by myself. And so I played this guy, Baseball Highlights, the dice game, which is coming to Kickstarter in about a week here from Eagle Griffin. It's baseball highlights and football highlights. They got them both in here. It was fun. It was quick. I enjoyed the experience enough to go, okay, I can play that again. And it's a roll and write. I mean, I love dice. We've talked about this. This thing is full of, like, some pretty cool.
Is it like Moneyball the game, right?
It is a straight roll and write, right? I mean, you're just.
Is it a solo game intentionally, or is it's got a solo mode?
It has a solo mode. It's a one to 4 player game, but I mean, it's pretty straightforward roll and write. We had a good time with it. It's not it's not a rocket science game, but if you like the IP, if you like roll and write stuff, it's gonna be a fun one to play. And one more that I got off the shelf that I didn't get a chance to mention. I haven't played it in a while, but I got back to the shelf. This is a very rare game, I'm told. It's very hard to find a copy of this. And this is the Star Wars version of Suro.
Oh shoot, that's the Russian version,
What?
right? Like that's
They did not make a lot of copies of this.
Nope.
I won it.
Know about that.
The guy, and I can't remember who at the time. This was well before I was doing any type of review work. But at the time, it was one of his personal copies of it. But yeah, you can see it's all in. I don't know what the language. It's definitely not English.
If you want to find Russian copies of games, I'm going to give you some behind the scenes thing here, right?
Okay.
So Hasbro has the Star Wars license for North America. So that's why everything goes through them. And then Fantasy Flight Games got grandfathered in, which is why they can do everything with Asmodee for Star Wars and so on. That has not stopped companies from getting the Star Wars license. So for the OP, we have an EMEA license, right? So we can do Dark Side Rising. I've got Star Wars Talisman right over there to get gearing it for that. And that's all available on the EU. But if you really want to dive deep, and so like we go into shows like Essen and so on, you get to see a lot of these things. So the Star Wars Suro, there's Star Wars Carcassonne, there's Star Wars Flux. There's all kinds of little things that you can go find. So don't be surprised. You may not have heard about it, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist in some kind of Mos Eisley Underdark kind of thing, right? So
yeah, I remember when you and I talked about the Star Wars Talisman. I was like, oh man, I think my son would be super into that. And then you were like, Europe only.
Yeah, it's tough. I even have a hard time kind of getting review copies out, so it's a weird thing there. But if I want to talk about games for I'm doing, so I could talk Star Wars because I got a whole box of our new stuff right there. But so I've been doing a lot more of this lately.
Oh, nice.
So here's for Pixar's Onward. So it's the Quest of Yore. It should be coming out later this year. So I think looking at like a April, May. So check out for that. It's going to have all this cool stuff going on.
Nice.
So it's going to have 13 quests in it. You've got pre-made characters, but you can make your own as well. So like we played a game where I got to be a Manticore defender and do a whole thing, which is super fun. But it's a light intro role-playing game. It's Barley's edition too, so it's got the fake tape on the sides and everything, and it's got a little worn down. But cool. We did it that way on purpose, so it's super cool. And then I'm playing a lot of Twilight Imperium lately, so I've been playing that on Tabletop Simulator.
There we go.
So I've got 2 games this month I'm super jazzed for. So
nice.
Should be good.
So we do have a question. This is probably more to Ross. Have you guys heard about Battlestar Galactica licensing? It's left to Aries, wondering if it's being widely talked about. The games are so expensive.
Yeah, so on licensed games, because we kind of talk about it literally the whole time, right? So licenses last for about 3 to 5 years, depending on the contract with different companies. So they'll have them. They get to make it. It's super cool. If they want to renew, that's up to them or the licensee. So as a lot of companies that are out there, which are a whole bunch now that are doing licensed games, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. So while a company may want to do that, things change, the licensor changes, relationships change, all kinds of things happen. So there isn't any one reason why it isn't available anymore. But when it's not, and it's dropped and it's gone away, like sometimes that's just how the story goes, you know? So, but when that happens, though, it does open up for new opportunities. So there have been licenses that have been kind of passed around with different games and different companies. Sure. So who knows how that's going to go? If you want to find out fun licensing stuff, License Global is a good one. And then there's a couple other industry sites like Game Industry Biz and stuff like that. I love following those. And now I'm the new host with the game chat.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah.
What
so
happened?
I think it's internet drop.
Oh,
there we go. He's back.
There we go.
Let's see.
Okay. So, but following a lot of those sites, there's a lot of cool industry sites that kind of follow licensing and stuff like that. ICV2 is another really good one as well. Yeah. And you can kind of see what's going on. So it's always neat to see where those things go and travel and pop up. So
it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Very cool. Well, Ross, this has been a lot of fun. Definitely, I think we went over our time limit of 30 minutes by just a little bit.
Oh, good.
Just a little bit. So this was, Ross, you were our first guest, and we're super thankful that you came on the show with us. And hopefully, if you're watching, whether you're watching from Gaming with Sidekicks or from One Board Family, or you randomly stumbled upon us on the internet, hopefully you got something out of this episode. So This is the game chat. Isaac, why don't you promote Gaming with Sidekicks a little bit?
Yeah, we're over on our main site, which is gamingsidekicks.com. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We're very active on Instagram, Facebook. We have a Gaming with Sidekicks board game community over on Facebook where we like to chat. We like to have a good time. We just gave away a copy of a game. We probably have some other giveaways hopefully coming in the near future, and we just love talking about games that you can play. Our big thing is games we love games we like with the people we love, right? And that's what we love to talk about.
That's cool. And then One Board Family, we're over at oneboardfamily.com. You can find us on YouTube and Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at One Board Family. And our YouTube channel is almost at 1,000. We're awesome. 912 or something like that, somewhere
Everybody
around
there.
In there.
And
so just jump on there and get us to 1,000. We would greatly appreciate it. We've been knocking on that door for a minute. So and join us on Friday nights for Friday Night Fight with Unmatched. So and then Ross, where can they find all that gaming goodness from the op?
Awesome. So we are at theop.games. You can find us online. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We got a Pinterest. You can do all those cool things there. Share what your games you're doing. Tag us online if you're playing our games. We love seeing what's going on. We've got a lot of cool announcements coming out. The year is just getting started for board games, so it's going to be a lot of cool stuff. We just finished our Gen Con Spring Showcase last week, but there's more shows on the road. So you can find us online. Let us know what you're playing, and we'd love it. Thank you.
Very cool. Well, you guys have a great night, and until next time, we'll see you at the table.